Not too far below Kagang Shoal, or Three Boat Rapid, the river went slack. We had entered a lake created by a landslide downstream. Landslides are notorious for creating problematic rapids for river runners, and this rapid was basically brand new. For over 25 kilometers, the suspense built as we struggled to push our slow rubber rafts against up-canyon winds. Not knowing how big the eventual release of the lake would be.
Before we got there, when the water was backed up about 20 miles, I thought there's no way that we're going to be able to run this, whatever drop is left. And thinking it was maybe 100 feet or so of drop, and the likelihood of it being not a major rapid or waterfall I thought was pretty small.
And I didn't know what to expect. I thought it might be a waterfall.
We go through this area without cops, without armies. That's the most important thing. We don't need a portage. We come here and then we can go. That's important.
So we made it here about 14K downstream of our last camp at the Binga landslide site. This was a massive, massive landslide that occurred on the Jinsha River. First time, October 11th, 2018. That's about 7 months ago. And what happened, you can see back here just next to the village of Binga, which is up high on the ridge there, which is about 1,000 meters above the river. This whole part of the mountainside just slid down into the river where it was fairly narrow, blocked up the river for a couple days, and then it breached and led to a flood of about 5,000 cubic meters per second, which is roughly almost 200,000 CFS. Then on November 3rd, about less than a month later, there was another landslide in the same site, and a lot more of the mountainside came down, blocked up the river again to a higher level, and that one remained blocked for about 8 or 9 days before it breached. But it went approximately 70 meters above the former river level, and what we've been seeing on the river here floating down is much higher water line, maybe 30-40 meters above the current water line. When that second landslide from November 3rd breached on November 13th or so, it sent a massive flood downstream that was about 30,000 cubic meters per second. This was measured by the height of the river and what they estimated the flow to be. This was published in a scientific paper last month in April. And they showed how that wave of water and the flood went downstream to Tiger's Leaping Gorge, and how each of the gauging stations was measuring the peak in flow. The big flow event lasted about a day, maybe two, and then it subsided. But it was flowing downstream roughly 20 kilometers an hour and just taking out bridges, taking out lots of houses that were close to the river. It's probably a wall or a giant flood that was maybe 20-30 meters above the current river level. But what we're seeing here now that we've gotten here, the landslide is here. It doesn't look anything like it does in the pictures from November 6 months ago. And it starts out with kind of a class 3-4 rapid, and it just kind of goes on in class 2 and 3 water downstream. Looks like we scouted with the drone downstream about 1 kilometer, and it looks good to go for us in the rafts and stuff. We should be able to stop on the side down there on the right in one spot and then scout farther down. When it breached, a lot of all this debris in the landslide kind of washed down and probably filled in the river bed downstream and just led to a more continuous drop. So we're going to have maybe 30 or 40 meters of drop after this big Jinsha lake that we paddled across for the last 25 kilometers or so. But hopefully it'll all be just kind of continuous class 2 to 3 water that we can manage and be able to stop on the side and scout at each point. Camp 11. We found nice, big, beautiful beaches downstream of the landslide. There's one 2 or 3K past the Ganjo confluence.
So it was pretty exciting to get up there and and look at, if we had to portage it, how complicated and difficult it would have been. But to be able to run it was incredible. And after the drone scout, we could tell that it was doable. A little bit bigger once we got in there. The waves were pretty good size and a lot of them, but really, really fun. A couple holes to miss and a couple walls to get away from, but in general, it's just a super fun rapid.
You can see this enormous beach resulting from sediments moved by the landslide that had then been breached. And it was really a nice spot for us to camp. But all we had to do was walk up to the top of this sand beach to see some of the havoc that had been caused by the flood. From about 50,000 feet, we look down and see Three Boat Rapid not long after this bend in the river that is caused by this 16,000 foot mountain. And as we move down the river, you can see there are signs of human habitation on both sides of the river. It's interesting that the hillside where the slide took place had some instability in it in 2017 when this image was taken. And we can overlay a screenshot from 2011 and see that there was instability back then in the hillside. Not sure what was causing that, but clearly it got worse over the years. In this older shot, you don't really see any roads that allow vehicles to pass. And then in the more recent photo, you do see there are wider dirt roads that would allow cars and trucks to travel. Clearly see how the flood from the breach in the landslide scoured the riverbank on both sides up to 100 feet high, and this would be evident throughout the rest of our trip down to Baton.